If I may have your attention, please. If I can have your attention, please. At this time, we're going to begin the funeral service here in our chapel for Mrs. Doris Horvitz. As we begin the service, I would ask if any of you has a cell phone or any other noise-making device, please turn them off at this time. Officiating the service here today is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil from Ezra Habanim, the Niles Township Jewish congregation here in Skokie, and the rabbi will begin the service assisting the family with the ancient tradition of Kriya. If I could ask the two family members wearing ribbons to please stand.
Adonai, ma Adam v'teda ehu, ben enosh v'techashvehu. Adam lehevel dama, yamav ketzel over, babokir tzitz v'chalaf le'erev, yimalel v'yavesh. Tashef enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei Adam. These are the words of the psalmist saying, Adonai, eternal God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you would even think of us or be mindful of us? For we are all just like a breath. Our days are a passing shadow. We all come and go like grass. Grass which in the morning of our lives, it shoots up and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. God, you cause all of us to return unto dust, saying, Shuvu v'nei Adam, return, O mortal ones. Would that we were wise, would that we understood whither we go from here. For when we die, we carry nothing with us, not our glory, not our material possessions. But you say, God, Shmor Tam Urei Yashar, mark the wholehearted, behold the upright. Those are the ones who shall find shalom, who shall find peace throughout their lives and in the end. And friends, we gather today to pay tribute to one and remember one who was Tam V'Yashar. She was wholehearted and she was upright. She led a long life and a good life with an example to follow and much to teach us throughout her life, including, as we will hear, towards the very end of her life, remembering for blessing Doris Horvitz. You'll find the 23rd Psalm in our handouts. I'll read it first in Hebrew, then we'll read it together in English. Our sacred scriptures have something to share at all times of our lives, the times of blessing, the times of happiness, and the times of sadness as well. And this is an appropriate time, of course, for Psalm 23. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot desha yarbitzeni, al meit menuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshuvev, yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech beged salmavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha mushantecha hema inachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi ravaya. Ach tov v'cheted yudufuni kol yemei chaya, v'shafti beveit Adonai lo orach yamim. We read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The 31st chapter of Mishlei, or Proverbs, is known as the Woman of Valor, the Eshet Chayil, and it's gotten a little bit out of fashion to recite it, but it is truly beautiful, and it describes a woman who really does it all, doesn't limit her in any way, really. This is a woman who works within the home, works outside the home, who is loyal to her family and praised by them as well. And this was surely the case of Doris Dodo Horvitz. It begins, Eshet Chayil mi yimtza, a woman of valor, who can find her? Begins sort of with a cynical note, like looking for a heart of gold and growing old, seeking that heart of gold. But ultimately, you found such a woman of valor. Eshet Chayil mi yimtza, a woman of valor, who can find her? The author, likely King Solomon, according to tradition, continues, her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, for he shall lack nothing. Surely true of Arnold, her beloved, who passed away those decades ago, really. Continues also talking about how she is like a merchant working hard on behalf of her family, as I said, both within the household, as she did so when she was raising her children, Susan and Rich, and outside the home as well, as she did as she was working at Allstate for those many years. That her mouth is open with wisdom, we'll learn about that as well. That she is kind, overseeing the household, and that her children rise to praise her, and her husband lauds her. And now her children will rise, literally, to praise her. Both of them, it's my honor first to call forward Rich, her son.
Hello. First, I'd like to welcome family and friends, especially those family members who become friends and those friends who become family. We're here to celebrate the 97 years of Doris Dodo Horvitz. More on the nickname later. But first, a quick story. My sister-in-law, Lee, is a hospice volunteer. She sits with the dying when family can't be there, reading to them, praying with them, watching TV with them, or just being quiet with them. One night, a patient's eyes flew open and she exclaimed, "My God, they are all here." And Lee asked her, "Who's here?" expecting to hear a name of a husband, family members, etc. "My cats. They are all here," was the reply, and she passed. So if one believes that cats can come to heaven to guide you to the next realm, you could be sure that my mother was greeted by her beloved husband, Arnold, her parents, Willie and Bertha, her siblings and their spouses, Lily and Spitzy, Jack and Dorothy, Irving and Tony, Bella and Irving, and Margie and Merle. Also in that posse would be nephews Michael, Billy, and Gary, niece Ellen, in-laws Ben and Fanny, brother-in-law Sidney, his wife Marion, my father's sister Marion, and of course, just a friend, Fred. My mother was born to a loving family with a father who was a tailor, a stay-at-home mom, 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters. Doris was the baby of the family for 3 years until Margie was born. In fact, Margie was the one who gave Mom the nickname, the lifelong nickname Dodo, as she couldn't say Doris. You can imagine that was difficult for a family of 8 to find a landlord willing to rent to them. At one point, my mom was sent to live with an aunt and uncle who lived nearby. I don't know how long she stayed. I don't even know if they stayed 24/7, but I do remember it was a bit traumatic for her. When she turned 6 or so, it became her job to take lunch to my grandfather at his tailor shop. My grandma would walk her to the streetcar, and she'd get off several stops later, met by my grandfather's man, or employee. She often walked into the shop to find my grandfather playing cards with other shop owners, penny ante stuff. It said that my mom would whine for a nickel to go to the movies or the ice cream shop until the other guys say, "For goodness sakes, Willie, give her a nickel." Can you imagine letting a 6-year-old today take a train by herself and then take herself to the movies? Different world, different time. As the 4 Marshak girls grew older, they had to share clothes. The rule was first one up got to choose, then onward down the line. My Aunt Lillian actually had a locked box for her special pair of shoes, but my Uncle Jack picked the lock for my mom. And at one time, Bella, I think, pulled my mom out of her high school classroom and made her change sweaters in the restroom. And now it's time for Arnold to make an appearance in the story of Doris. After my father flew his required number of bombing missions in World War II, he and his buddies would get dressed up and head down to downtown Chicago hotels to crash Jewish weddings. There was a shortage of men back then, so they were welcome to partake of the sweet table, the open bar, and dance with the women. My dad became interested in a woman, but he knows she was married. He asked her, "Are there any more at home like you?" A bold move, which led to my Aunt Bella giving my dad her parents' phone number with Doris in mind. Her husband, Irving, upon seeing her give my dad a slip of paper, was ready to fight. Bella calmed him down with an explanation that Arnold would be great for Doris. After talking to my dad on the phone and getting Bella's opinion, they made a date. Dad came to the door in a powder blue suit with blue suede shoes, and it was love at first sight. And one thing about their marriage that always comes to mind, she admitted she often slept with her hand clutching his hair, which must have been very comfortable for him. After getting married, a year later, Susan was born. She had them all to herself until the age of 4 when I showed up. In those days, women were often sedated during childbirth and stayed in the hospital for many days. When I was born, my father said to my drowsy mom, "Doris, we have a son." She goes, "Arnold, this is no time for jokes." Another unique thing about their marriage, because my dad owned a music school downtown that catered to high school students coming after school, he often worked until 7 or 8 at night. Mom would make Susan and I dinner, serve it in front of the TV, and then give my dad a whole different meal. We summered in a cottage in Union Pier, Michigan, where actually Jody and I sometimes go for lunch. It was only about 15,000 steps down to the beach, but we made friends and we were outside all day long. Every Friday night, my dad would drive up with a box of meat from his dad, the butcher. We'd go on day trips like Deer Park and also got a treat, a toy from the local hardware store. And then Monday morning, my dad would drive back to work for the rest of the week. In 1964, we moved from the south side to the Rogers Park, going from a third-floor walk-up to a third-floor walk-up, where Mom would reside for the next 26 years or so. Mom joined the crossing guard hot chocolate crew to make sure I would get to school safely. We joined near Tommy Temple, but other than Sunday school, we weren't really active, especially after my bar mitzvah. Mom liked coming to watch me play Little League at River Park. After one particular outburst of "Smack it, Richie," I had to have the talk with her. She could continue to come if she controlled her excitement. By the time I made it to high school, my father's business was affected by the desertion of downtown after 5 p.m. He decided to close the school rather than move it. He used his connections to become a production manager for wholesale jewelers, supplied jewelry to companies like Target. Since I was able to take care of myself, my mother began looking for a job. She saw an ad for a secretary at a local state farm agency on Peterson, went in for an interview. The agent said, "Well, sometimes it's hard to find a parking spot near the office." And she said, "That's okay, I don't drive." She would walk most days, and if the weather was bad, the agent or another employee would pick her up. Sometimes my father would take an early lunch hour and pick her up and take her to work. Now we're in 1972, and I'm getting my driver's license. And you know how stupid 16-year-old boys can be with driving. Fender benders, sometimes worse. But you know what's worse than getting in an accident in the first place is having to call your non-driving mom to report the accident at the insurance agent's secretary's office. 1983, Jody and I got married, and Jody took over the family holiday meals. Mom loved her brisket and brought her own Tupperware to take leftovers home. Skipping forward to 1989, my father passed suddenly from a stroke. My dad had done all the banking, shopping, laundry, etc. Luckily, an angel brother-in-law, Merle, stepped up and helped my mom get her affairs in order. He had help from her brother, Jack. I do remember this one time taking her to the grocery store and leaving her in the toilet paper aisle while I went to get something else. I turned the corner and found her upset. She didn't know what brand she used, and all she knows is it had a picture of a baby on it. I said, "Mom, it's okay. Buy a 4-pack, try it. You only have to please yourself." We both laughed. And she learned to drive at 62 years old. Not far, not fast, but enough to do her shopping, dinners, doctor's appointments, etc. Then in 1991, her landlord said he was going to sell the building to a couple who wanted all 3 apartments to family members. Once again, Merle stepped up and found my mother a nice 1-bedroom condo in Winston Towers, where she resided for next 30 years or so. All new furniture, a whole new lifestyle. Quickly made friends, traveled to Italy, France, usually to Stratford. Was always on the move. One quick story. One day, a man calls the State Farm office for renter's insurance. Mom asked for the address, and he said, 6214 North Richmond. She goes, that's my old building. She asked, what floor? He goes, 3rd. She goes, that's my old apartment. So, strange world. Something else phenomenal happened in 1991. My daughter Ariel was born, giving my mom her first grandchild. When Ariel was in daycare, Wednesdays were designated Grandma Dinner Day. They often went to Baker Square when it was free pie slice night. Then they would go back to the condo and play a game till I came and picked her up. Flukies was also an option for the dinner date. At Winston, she also met just a friend, Fred. Everyone from the building residents to waitresses thought they were dated or married. They, along with their friend Rhoda, were inseparable. Lunch and dinners out, movies, etc. They were both included in our family holiday meals. Sadly, Fred passed away, but Rhoda should still be included. Mom had been a smoker until she received a stent in her 60s and quit cold turkey. In December of 2020, she contracted COVID. Getting put on oxygen for COPD, it took a long time to recover. With the lockdown, Winston Towers changed from a friendly environment with lots of people hanging out to people scurrying into her apartments. It was a lonely time for my mom. After more frequent hospitalizations, we moved Mom into independent living at the Carrington. It was wonderful, with a lot of activities, friendly residents, and staff. Then Mom got COVID again, and she needed help. We got her 24-hour aids, and her hearing, eyesight, sense of smell, and taste were failing. We had a nice lunch on Sunday, March 10th, the day before her 97th birthday. Susan was in, Ariel and Carl, Rhoda came, and even my birth brother Marty stopped by for cake. I looked at my mom, and she just looked gassed. I took her home, and on the day of her 97th birthday, we went to the ER for pneumonia. She had a 4-day stay and then went back to the Carrington with her aides, but she was really having problems and needed more nursing assistance. On March 24th, we went back to Alden, securing a single room covered by her favorite CNA, and she participated in PT and OT therapy. On October 7th, she suffered some event that took her down and prompted us to put her in hospice. On the 10th, we knew we didn't have much time. I called Susan so she could hear her voice. She did. She acknowledged it. Susan had a flight booked for that Friday and was coming in but couldn't be there in time. In the last 15 minutes of my mother's life, she opened her eyes. Who is that? Like an idiot, I turned my head to look at the ceiling. I put my face in her line of sight and said, Mother, Mom, do you see me? She said, yes, but who's up there? I asked her, is it Daddy? She said, no. I asked her, is it an angel? She said, yes. I asked her, can you take its hand? She said, no, it's too high. A few times during that period, she actually stretched out her arm as if to grab something, only for her arm to gently fall back. During this time, I was telling her, it's okay to go to God. It's okay to go to Dad. You'll be out of pain, be able to breathe, see, hear, taste, and walk again. She finally passed with me holding her hand, and peace prevailed. I'm sure she went with Dad. I'm not a deeply religious or metaphysical person, but I do know what I witnessed in those last 15 minutes. While we're on the subject of angels, I'd like to acknowledge some here on earth. My wife, Jody, for supporting me during the increasingly intense caregiving role. My daughter, Ariel, for helping me through this process, especially through a Thursday take my daughter to work rides. My sister, Susan, for flying back and forth from Phoenix to be with my mom and offer me support and help. What used to be an annual trip recently became a seasonal round trip. It was hard for her to come in and harder for her to be at home knowing what was happening. I'm glad she heard your voice on the phone, Mom, during her final moments. Cousins Jackie and Jerry, Stacy and Arlen, Lori, Julie and Terry, Barry and Alyssa, whose frequent visits are always uplifting and enjoyable. Cinda, Dennis, Bruce, Rochelle also came by. She really felt better after seeing you. It was a mitzvah. Her overnight caregivers, Tanisha and Alicia from Open Arms, who managed her anxiety when it was at its greatest. Her day caregivers, Kiera and AJ from CHC, who did the heavy lifting of medicine and entertainment. Her Alden CNA, Omar, who always managed to react in a timely manner, even though he had other patients. At the end of his last shift with her, he came in to see if there's anything he can do to make her more comfortable. She took his hand and kissed it and said, Omar, you are my God. I love you. He whispered back, unfortunately in her bad ear, I love you too, Doris. He was the reason we went to Alden's for her last stay. When I picked up Sue at the airport on Wednesday, I had one of those moments where I had to laugh. As I'm pulling away from the curb, I started to say, "You better," and then said, "Oh." She said, "What?" I said, "You better call Mom to tell her you're landed." We both said, "Mom, she's landed." "Mom, I'm the person I became because of you. I am missing you already." You want me to stay up here?
Calling forward Susan as well. And Rich, that was a gorgeous eulogy that you made for your mom. Thank you.
We're all of the age. Mom lived and breathed family. She was the matriarch of our family. Aunt Dodo, Grandma, Mom, friend, and always Arnold's girl. First, I'm going to share something with all of you. Mom called me on April 5th. It was 7:45 p.m., close to her bedtime. Although she sounded tired, she was clear and adamant when she directed me to get paper and pencil, write this down, every word write down. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I said, "Okay, Mom, all ready." And she began. Question 1, King of Kings. Who is Christ supposed to represent? The people of his church, and they depend on him for sustenance and life. But their wrath is turning them into steel, turning them into robots. People turning into robots. Question 2, who is Moses? Moses promised people to guide them into a beautiful life, but they have turned into an army of killers. Question 3, who is the real King of Kings? The real King of Kings is you and me. We are the real people. People are the real kings, keeping the country beautiful and full of love. We need to keep this part of the world ours, the people's. Killing does not survive people. Peace and holding hands is the only way we people will survive. In all effect, the one King of Kings is us, people, human beings that we are and must continue. It's quite the powerful message, and that was every word that she spoke to me. She touched every one of us all of our lives. We are blessed with having individual special moments, snippets that when put together make the whole. But there's one personal one for me that stands out from all the others. 2 years ago, I had a recollection of a certain special time that Mom and I shared yearly, our tradition. She and I would go downtown at Christmas time to Marshall Fields to see the holiday window displays. And then we would take the escalator up to the walnut room where the Christmas tree would be lit up and lunch would be served around it. Such a strong memory. So I searched the internet and found an artist's rendition in watercolors of the walnut room and the tree at Christmas. I gave that to Mom as her gift. And on her card, I wrote simply, "You never know what a moment means until it becomes a memory." But that was just one of the gazillion moments that have filled my life with joy, and I will cherish each and every one always. Thank you for being my mom and for making me the woman I am today. I love you.
Thank you so much, Susan and Rich, for those beautiful remarks about your mom. Leda hi reshit v'tirat tachlit ha'chaim k'masahem, mishalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, life a journey, a going and a growing from stage to stage. And now the life journey, the long life journey of Doris Dodo Horvitz has now reached its ultimate destination. We please rise, if it's comfortable for you to do so, for the memorial prayer, which would conclude the service here in the chapel. Mourner's Kaddish is recited at the cemetery. After I recite it, we'll find the memorial prayer. It says El Malei Rachamim on the under the 23rd Psalm in our handouts. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Vamromim Amatzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina V'Ma'alo Kedoshim V'Tehorim Kezohar Harakia Masirim Et Nishmat Hikara Shalanu Shahalcha La'olama Bavor Shanach Mitpalalim Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Lachin Baal Harachamim Yastireha Beseter Kenafav La'olamim V'yitzor B'tzor HaChaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hunachalata V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. Together. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Doris Horvitz, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you.
This concludes the service here in our chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family's plots at West Lawn Cemetery, 7801 West Montrose in Norwich. Following the interment today, the family will be sitting Shiva at the Miller Horvitz residence, 814 South Boulevard in Evanston. They'll be receiving upon return from the cemetery today until 8:30 p.m. and tomorrow, Tuesday, from 1 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Please note there are 6 stairs to enter the residence, and a dog and a cat reside there as well. I'd also like you to please pay attention. The family has asked for memorial contributions to be made to Hatzalah Chicago. Hatzalah is a private ambulance service run by volunteers locally here in Chicagoland, and the World Central Kitchen. That information's on the funeral service folder. For those of you watching online, all of this information, the Shiva and contribution information, is on the website you are currently on. For those of you going in procession today, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please make sure you have an orange funeral safety sticker. You should place that in the front passenger side of your windshield. We would also ask that you please have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on the tops of the vehicles throughout the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as close as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you at all times. We want to avoid having any large spaces or large gaps in the procession, particularly as we pass through the intersections. The following individuals have been asked to serve as pallbearers. As I call your name, if you please come forward. Carl Ford, Bruce Marshak, David Rosenberg, Terry Kent, Arlen Schub, Marty Heller, Mark Obler, Stu Berzak, Steve McLean, Harold Bulber, John Lefsidis, Sander Gross, David Lewis, Hans Schaefer, Joe O'Connor, and as honorary pallbearers, Jerry Margolis, Barry Spitzer, John Marshak, Dennis Marshak, Paul Horvitz, and Bob Miller. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise as the deceased and family and rabbi are escorted from the chapel. Thank you.